Hi there, and in this video we're going to look at how you note take. The key features of note taking really when you do this is whenever you're doing it either on paper or on your computer, you need to make sure you're recording the book title, the author, the date it's published and the publisher. And then every single time you are making a note from the article or book that you're reading, keep a note of the page number. It's really important. Those are the fundamentals before you start note taking. Knowing what's important then to write down is absolutely down to you. And the first thing you should do is keep an eye on the title. If it's to do with civil rights and you're looking at Martin Luther King, see if there is any information in the chapter that you're reading which counters the argument that King was particularly strong, or perhaps supports the idea that King was strong. And you could use that and say, this historian believes this and here's the reason why, and use actual evidence from their book. You're also looking for facts, dates, events, people, all linked to your question, but it's all about keeping your eye on what you're looking for. And the more you do notes, the more you read articles and books, and you're recording information down, the better you'll get at it. Another thing to look for is the opinion of a historian, their interpretation. That's going to be absolutely gold when it comes to coursework, but in any historical writing, you're looking for people's opinions, because that's what history is about. It's about recording events and looking at how people see those different events. You also want to make sure when you're note taking that you've got enough detail to present a point. If you were to lose the book, or the book was taken out of the library and you couldn't get hold of it, would you have enough information to be able to write some points about it? This slide is just giving you some ideas of the symbols that you could use when note taking to speed up your notes. I tend to use equals quite a lot myself. You've got greater than or less than. Another one that's not on here is a line and then two dots either side, which means between, which is something that I've used. But this just gives you an idea of how you could speed up your note taking, or you'll come up with different things that help you. Next up is where in the book to find the referencing that you need for your notes. We'll talk in a separate video about how you actually footnote and how you reference the work that you've been reading. But to begin with, let's take this book, for example, Lawrence Rees, the one associated with the anti-Semitism course. If I open up the cover, within the first few pages, it will tell me the date that it was published. So it's first published in 2017. Here's the author again, if it's not on the front. And here is the publisher. They're the things that I want to record. Then I'm going to use the contents page, which is quite close by, to get an idea of what I want to read. I might not necessarily have time to read all of this, but if I was looking at anti-Semitism and whether it was a German issue, I'd certainly want to look at number 1, the origins of hate. I probably don't need chapters 2, 3 or 4, look at how the Nazis came to power. I might want 5 on the Nuremberg laws. I definitely want to think about maybe 6 and 7. And then when it comes to persecution in the West, that'd be an interesting one to look at what happened in other countries. So I'm going to skip some of these. And when I start to look through the chapter, I'm going to start reading the chapter. And if it's not particularly relevant, I might just start skim reading until I can find something that is relevant for me. Okay, so the first thing about note taking is recording down the important information that you need. So take, for example, this book. This is by Lawrence Rees. It's called The Holocaust. So if I'm note taking from a book, first thing I would do is I would put the title of the book. I'm going to put the author. Underline that, underline that. Then I'm going to open this up. And I'm going to look for some really interesting information, which is going to be here, which is the publishing date when it was first published and who it's published by, and then I'm going to record that down as well. So first published 2017, and it's by Penguin Random House. Done. The next step, I'm going to use a bit of common sense really when it comes to note taking. I'm going to have a look through the book. Now it might be that the whole book's useful, which is fine. It might be that I want to just pick on certain elements. So I know that if I was doing anti-Semitism, I'd want to look at the origins of hate really. That's the first bit. So let's go to the very first chapter. And then what I'm going to do really is, as I read through this chapter, so it's not too big, it's only a couple of pages long. As I read through that chapter, what I'm going to do is I'm going to note down the page reference, so page number, so in which case this is, interestingly, page 1. And then I'm just going to take notes. So notes on origins of hate. I'm going to decide what's important for my question. If, for example, I came across something particularly useful, I would, like a direct quote from somebody, so that there is that somewhere in here. I'd put the page number again, I directly quote then whatever it was, end quote. And then when it comes to referencing later on, I can use all the information I've got in my notes to do that reference. So I know what page reference it is, I know what book it is, the author, and so on. So that will come in handy later on. That's why I'm doing that from the start. As I go then through the rest of the book, I'm simply going to use the margin, which most of you would have in your lined paper, to reference page numbers, 247, and then I'm just going to continue writing quotes. I'm also going to continue writing facts. I might put down events, and I'm consciously keeping in mind what my question is. If anything I'm reading comes up and tells me something that supports the question, then I'll write that down. If there's something that even contrasts it even better, and I'll write that down as well. Next up really is looking at how you use magazines. So let's take, for example, this is BBC History magazine. In particular, it says up here that it is April 2020, fine. So I can reference that. Now, referencing or taking notes from a magazine and then referencing it later, slightly different. What you're going to do is you're going to look for the author of the article. So let's say, just per chance, we're going to do a piece on Queen Mary. So there's an article here called The Brilliance, Mary, Brutal but Brilliant. First of all, I need to find out who's written it. Here we go, Alexander Sampson. So that's the title. So I'd write that down as the title, the name of the article. Then I'd write down the author. Then I'm going to show you what to record down next. So let's take, for example, let's say I've finished with that book. The next one I'm going to do would be article, Mary, Brutal but Brilliant. That's my title. Alexander Sampson is the author. And next we want to kind of get the same information we got here. So this time I need to write down what magazine it is. So this is BBC History magazine. Normally the volume number, with a lot of these are the volume number. In this case there isn't, so we'll go April 2020. Then I do exactly the same as what I did before. So I would say, I don't know, in this case it'll be the magazine pages, page 32. I'm then going to write down, I don't know, there were at least 284 victims over 4 years. That's a direct quote. If I've got an opinion or an interpretation, the same thing really, somebody's opinion or somebody's interpretation of the events, facts or general points, I can record those down. If I've rephrased them, so if I rephrase them, I don't need to directly quote. That's not needed. I just need to make sure I reference the page number that they've come from. When it comes to referencing, that'll be a later video, and I'll show you how that kind of works. But in terms of note taking, these are the fundamentals. You always want the author, you always want the title, you want when it's published, who's published it, and then your page references as you go along. And that's really about it for note taking. You take as many notes as you want, and then once you finish with your books and your magazines, you can put them to one side, knowing full well that in your notes you've got everything you need recorded.